All right, so today we're going to be going over News Site Part 2. Over the long weekend, you had News Site Part 1 to do. I'm not going to be going over that this time because it's really just the tutorial of News Site Part 1 is exactly the same as what we'd be seeing there. So again, News Site is going to be a multi-day project. We're going to be building on it with every subsequent day. So always make sure you have your code ready to copy over. So it says right here, today we're going to create one new component, 2 pages, and a routing system to build up News Site 2. And it says right here, a large majority of this code has already been written for you here or the previous day's code. So we'll be moving quite a bit of code from one place to another. So first we need to copy over some components from News Site 1. You can see here I've got News Site 1 right here and News Site 2. So inside News Site 2, I've got a components folder with an article list folder, but nothing else. So there's other things I need to add to it. So I'm going to copy my app nav folder. Paste it here. I'm going to copy my article folder. Oh, I think I hit the wrong thing. And my article teaser folder. Make sure that's article list, article teaser, article, app nav. Looks like I don't have an article list thing here, so that must be new. And we also need to copy over our app.js from News Site 1 into News Site 2. So here's my News Site 1's app.js. I'm going to copy it all. Then News Site 2, find the app.js. Oh. All right. So I'm going to do an npm start to make sure it works. Oh, wait, I need to actually go into News Site 2. All right, what did I do wrong here? I just think I still need to do. One sec. Do I have to do npm install again? That might take a while. Well, while that's installing, we can always take a look at kind of do a quick review of the components that we already have. So we've got this app here that extends component. So in state, we've got our nav items, which is an array of objects with labels and values. Then an article object, which is essentially getting a random article. We can see here our app renders a div with an app nav component, an article teaser component that gets an ID, a title, a created date, a handle title click, and an article component. AppNav.js, we've got a function called createLinks, which takes in props.nav items, and maps over them. So with item and index, and returns a link that doesn't go anywhere, where the key is index, with an onClick, which is props.handleNavClick, and shows the item value. And we just run that function in our nav tags here. We took a look at article. Article just simply deconstructs props and displays them here. For image and byline, since neither of those are decided whether or not they will be there, we've used a, why do I always forget the word for it? The single line if else, whose name escapes me at the moment. So we either display, I'm sorry?
Ternary.
Ternary,
right?
Thank you. Yes, the ternary operator that either displays the byline in the image or null. And article teaser is just a link tag that has a handle title click and also displays the created date. Does anyone have any questions about the components from News Site 1? Okay. In that case, you just have to wait for the npm install to go through. Gonna get rid of this function here. We don't need it.
Noah, did you have to do npx create react app? Because in the setup for new site part 2, it says that we're supposed to do that, but I didn't see that you did that.
Where does it say that here?
Under initial setup for new site 2, let's see here.
For some reason, yours looks different.
Yeah, that's different than the one that.
Oh. Okay, this is probably forked over from an earlier version, perhaps. Let me. Sorry, I'm just going to take a look at Mike Platoon's version. Oh, yeah. Okay, I was going off an earlier version of it. That's why. Okay. Oops. All right, let me think. Should we?
I think it says you can use your own code or you can use this.
Yep, you're right. Well, might as well wait for this to finish, and if it finishes and works, then we're fine. If not, I'll do it this way. And yeah, sorry for the delay. It's one of those things where when you've already forked something on GitHub, it'll say you've already forked this, and it won't tell you that it's not. I forgot to check that it's like, oh yeah, this is my version was forked over from Kilo Platoon, not Mike Platoon. Okay, let's try an npm start, and if that doesn't work, we'll go back, but I think it should work. All right, starting the development server, that's a good sign. Okay. So I've got some components here. It doesn't look pretty at all, but they are loading. All right. With that working, I'm going to turn off the server for now because we have some more installations to do. So we're going to be adding some styling later. So we're going to be using a library called React along with Bootstrap. So I'm going to npm install Bootstrap. don't know why this is being so slow. That's being real slow. I'm not sure what's going on there. All right, so I'm going to take a look at stuff after that just to be sure. So once we have that installed, we're going to be adding an import statement to our src/index.js. And then we'll do styling after we do everything else. I just want to get the installation out of the way. And then we'll talk about how, at the moment, the links in your article teaser component appends to a hashtag to the URL when clicked. This can cause a problem when handling route/URL changes later today. So we're going to modify the onClick event handler to alleviate this changing onClick to this. So we have an onClick event prevent default, this.props.handle title click, this.props.id. So we need that event.prevent default there. So going to the article teaser component. So we're going to have onClick equal event. And instead of just doing handle title click, we're going to event.prevent default. And then handle title click ID. All right, so npm install React strap while I'm here. Hopefully that won't take as long. In the meantime, I'm going to go to index.js, which is kind of very much the core of the entire project here. And I'm going to import bootstrap/dist/css bootstrap-min.css. All right. Now we have a new component called article list. So article list, it's instead of showing a random article, we want our homepage to show a list of article teasers. Our mission is to handle the props that are being passed in appropriately and create the content that the component should render. So props the article list is going to get is a list of articles, an array of article objects, and a handle title click function. So we can see what's already written here. We have a class article list extending component, render return. So we know that we're going to be getting articles and a handle title click function. It says it'll receive an array of articles, and we want to make sure we understand what the data looks like. So we need to take a look at src/data/news, news.json. So this is what our data is going to look like. It's got a lot of information that we're not actually going to be using. We've got an abstract, a byline, created date, but we don't need the des facet, we don't need the geo facet, the item type, the kicker, all of that. That's all stuff we don't need to look at. But we are still going to be getting all of this, we're going to assume. It says right here, we're going to map over the array and create an array of article teasers. When you map over the articles array, it's good to use arrow functions. Okay. So article list, boop, boop. All right, and it's already imported article teaser for us. Maybe I could write a function. We could call this, I don't know, create teasers. And we'll say this.props.articles.map. And when we map, we want to use both the value and the index here because we might want the index number. So I could say article and index. And then we need our callback function. Sorry, there we go. And so then we need to return an article teaser object. So we know we're going to be returning an article teaser. And what an article teaser takes an ID, a title, a created date, and handle title click as prompts. Okay. So we know we're going to get the ID, title, created date, and handle click from our data.js. News.json, excuse me. So the ID is probably going to be the index number. So we'll say ID equals article. We'll actually say index. We don't need to say that. And then the title. So we'll get that by say it'll be the I think that'll would that be called the abstract, or where's the headline? There should be a headline, right? Nope. So I guess that would be the abstract. So article.abstract. Created date. We go into an article, it'll be just called created date. And handle title click. All right, we don't really have what that is yet. So for now, we can just do an anonymous function of some kind. Or we could see handle title click right here. Yeah, so it doesn't really say what to do about that. That's fine. So right now it's just an anonymous function. And now that we've created this create teasers, we should call it, we should just be able to run that function here. So this dot create teasers. All right, what questions do you have about this article list component?
You know, I went back and looked, and there is a title, a title property.
I'm sure there is. I just haven't been able to see it in this information.
It's below the multimedia stuff.
Ah, so it is. All right. Thank you. There we go. Okay. This all making sense so far? Okay. So now we're going to be adding a new library to this called React Router. React Router is a popular open source library, and it's used to control paging in a single page application. So what that means is, right now, our React app is just localhost 3000 and it doesn't have any other URLs. We're going to make it so that even though there's only one HTML document in this entire project, you're still going to be adding multiple URLs. So we're going to be doing another npm install of React Router DOM. And this is going to require us to change how our app.js is organized quite a bit. So I can just start doing that I can just start working on that while it's still installing. So we're going to be importing browser router as router and route from React Router DOM. So import browser router as router and route from React Router DOM. And then we're gonna have to rewrite our render. So we'll have our app nav as normal. And then we're gonna have something here called router. And inside of that, we'll have 2 routes. So I'm gonna get rid of all of the article teaser and the article and all of that. We don't need that now. So I'm gonna make a router component. Then inside that, we'll put a div. And then we'll put 2 routes. And let's kind of dissect these a bit. So we have this word exact, something called path, and then something called component, which points to home page, and another one here that points to article page, which we haven't really looked at yet, but those are already defined for us in our file structure. So the path here is talking about, okay, where in the URL would we go? So this path right here takes us to the home page. So if we just go to localhost 3000 / that'll be that route. And the other route will be to /articles / with an article ID at the end of it. And that'll take us to something called an article page. All right, and now that's installed. So I can set up my routes. So it says, so route exact, path equals / component equals homepage. And then route exact path equals /articles / article ID component equals article page. All right, so these are 2 components that we haven't really looked at yet. But if we look at pages here, we've got 2 of them, article page.js and homepage.js. These both have exports already. So I just need to import them here. And we can look up here, we're not using article teaser or article anymore, so I can get rid of these import statements. Instead I can say import homepage from /pages / homepage.js. And I can import article page from /pages / article page.js. Let's try this out, see if it works. Right now, article page and homepage don't really have much functionality, but they should exist. And we should be able to check these different routes. So the router and the routes, these aren't visible components. We won't see them. These essentially serve as ways of creating this thing that says, okay, article page and home page are now going to be new components here. These are new components that are going to render like app.js kind of rendered everything. All right, so right now, right here, we should be looking at homepage.js. App.js still has article teaser component. I don't want that anymore. So we're getting rid of that. All right, so if I inspect this and take a look, I don't think it's working the way it's supposed to be. But we can see right here we have a browser router, route, homepage, and article list component. So the article list component isn't rendering anything yet, so that's a problem. But it is showing us this article page. And now if I go to articles/1, it takes us to the article page. So this route that we've created now takes us here. If we take a look at article page, let's see if it displays anything yet. No, it just says article page. So it looks like we're having a problem with homepage right now, specifically with our article list, but this one is working as intended. Any questions about React Router?
I have a quick one.
Yeah.
Is this similar to the URLs in Django?
It serves a similar purpose, yeah. So the React Router is where we determine what our URLs are going to be. So again, this slash here means the home page or the root page. And then we're saying, okay, we're creating an articles page that takes in an article ID as something. And we'll get to pretty soon how that works exactly. So yeah, this essentially follows the same purpose as the URLs page in Django. And I also think I realized what's wrong with my article list real quick. I need to return this .props.articles.map here. So if I refresh the page, there we go. Now we have a list of article teasers. All right, what other questions do you have about React Router? Because this is going to be a big part of things from now on.
Hey, Noah, like you're opening components on the Chrome dev, is it something I can like enable? Because I cannot see on mine.
Did you install the extension called React DevTools?
No, I think.
Yeah, so that if you Google React DevTools, it'll you can install this tool, and that'll allow you to use this components thing.
And that's
Okay,
called a
yeah.
Chrome extension.
Yes, that's a Chrome extension.
Because I found it really useful. And like all of this, like a different language, is it because news, it comes from news JSON, right?
Yeah, all this stuff right here, this is just placeholder text.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you'll find there's a kind of a Latin nonsense paragraph that's called lorem ipsum for short, and that's kind of been used as standard placeholder text for a very long time. So yeah, it's nonsense. Okay, so if we continue on a bit. So we can see right here, homepage components successfully brought in. It's about 60% complete. So you define your route, assuming you've successfully built the article list component. You should see a list of articles. You should also be able to see the article page. You simply have the nav bar at the top and the word article page as boilerplate. So that sounds like what we're seeing so far, so we can continue. So right here, homepage is largely complete. It simply renders an article list component. One piece of functionality we need to complete is the handle title click function being passed into the article list component. Ultimately, this function should trigger a page change. React Router automatically passes a series of routing-related props to homepage component. One of these is called this.props.history. And we can trigger a page change by calling this.props.history.push new URL. So we want to push that to we want to push a new thing into our history. This should look something like this: this.props.history.push /articles/article ID. So take a look at homepage here. So right now, handle title click doesn't do anything, takes in an article ID, and says to do, use React Router's history.push method to change the page to articles/article ID. So again, thanks to React Router, we have this new thing in our props called this.props.history. So I say this.props.history.push. And then we want to have, it'd be slash, looks something like that. Okay, so we need to say dot push slash articles slash I completely blanked out on how to do string interpolation for a second there. Article ID. So we don't want to console.log anymore as well. And so that will pass this function into article list. And we can grab this and say, all right, we don't want this handle title click to be that anymore. We want it to be, it would be this.props.handle title click. That passes it from an article list to each article teaser. And the article teaser just says, all right, I'm going to call on handle title click from my props. So now we refresh the page and try it out. Let's see what happens. All right, that took us to articles/0, which normally you wouldn't have something with the ID of 0, but we don't need to worry about that right now. And we can see that the URL is changing to articles/5, articles/etc. So again, we have this function here called handle title click, which we know is going to take an article ID, some kind of number, and it'll push that, essentially meaning move us to another page without actually causing a screen refresh. That passes it to article list. And article list just passes that even further down to the next component, to each article teaser, as handle title click. And then each article teaser says, okay, now that I've got handle title click as props, I'm going to prevent default when you click on the link. And then I'm going to handle title click with this ID number. What questions do you have on how that works? All right, I'm going to assume then that that makes perfect sense to everybody. We can take a look at the article page component. So it says right here, the article page component should render the article component and provide the necessary props to the child component. If you remember, article accepts a variety of props from a single article object in src/data/news.json. In order to determine the array object to use, you once again have to use the same React Router functionality that's automatically being passed into the article page. And React Router also provides us with access to the URL params via the props object. So the index you'll want to target within the articles array will be contained within this.props.match.params.article_id. So if we want to take a closer look at that, if we open up components, we should be able to find that this.props.blah, blah, blah. All right, so it looks like it's not showing us it here. But if I go to my article page, and if I console.log this.props was it this.props.match. Let's just try console.logging this.props for now, seeing if we can get something with a little more detail. So we can see props is an object with a lot of stuff. It's got something called match. And match shows us something like the params, which includes our article ID, which we defined in our React router here with the colon. So the colon is called params, meaning information we get from our URL. So we can, using this.props.match.params, we can get that ID number. And it says right here, this variable corresponds to article ID in this URL, like it says. So we're going to write the code necessary to find the news article and pass it into the article component and render it out on the screen. So we can take a look at article page. It's already imported an article, the article component, and our news from news.json. So the first thing we're going to need to do is be able to get our actual news article from news.json. And since you can get the ID number, we could just say, all right, so let ID num equal this.props.match. Just want to make sure I'm getting it right. This.props.match.params.article ID. Then we could say, all right, let article equal news ID num. And then our article page is going to, instead of returning that, it's going to return an article object. Or I'm sorry, an article component. And our article component takes in an abstract, a byline, created date, ID, image, and title. So ID equals ID num. Title equals article.title. Abstract equals article.abstract. Created date equals article.created date. Byline equals article.byline. And image equals, and I believe it's going to be a little more complicated to get the image out of our data news.json this time because we have several images within multimedia. So may have to do something like, all right, multimedia 0.URL probably. Let's be article.multimedia 0.URL. Let's try that. All right, and as we can see, we've got our title, the date, byline, a tiny image, and the abstract. All right, what questions do you have about the article page and params? I find this lack of questions rather suspicious.
Oh, yeah. No, it's just a lot. I think personally for me, I'm going to have to sit and like fine tooth comb through this and go step by step, till I understand everything. It's
Yep.
just, I got kind of lost about 30
That's
minutes
okay.
ago on the,
Yeah, And that is what your assignment for today is, to go over this step by step and recreate it yourselves. So you will get that time to try it yourself, but now is also a good time to ask any questions if there's anything that's like very clearly standing out and not making sense right now. But if not, we can start trying to style things. All right, so let's try using React Strap. So we've got a link here that'll take us there. So they have some examples here of different things, components you can get from React Strap. So they use a nav bar as an example here. They have nav bar brand. So, okay, let's try doing that, something like this for our nav bar. So I don't know if we need to do everything. We don't need the collapse or everything like that. So if I open up our app nav here, I'm going to import a few things from React Strap. So they have nav bars, navs, all sorts of stuff. So we can try these out as much as we can. So keeping in mind that our app nav right now is very basic. It doesn't actually do anything. So let's say import. We'll definitely want nav bar, probably nav and nav item, and probably nav link while we're at it from React Strap. And we can see from their example here, this is a whole thing with toggles. I don't care about toggling. I just want it to, just look nice. So I'm going to kind of refactor this a bit. Make sure you put a parentheses here. I'm going to Control X this for now. We're going to return a div. Inside that div, we're going to put a nav bar. Oh, it's just lowercase b. Where is it? Yep, lowercase b. Inside that, we can put a nav, just following their example here. And they have something called color equals light, light expand equals MD. So we could try color equals light, light expand equals MD. In their nav, they have give it a class name called mrAuto. And we'll say nav bar. And then we can say, all right, we'll put a nav item here. And each one is going to have a nav link. But I think in this case, we'll just put an A tag right now and see if that works. Since we're not actually, I think nav link has more functionality than we really need right now. All right, so this looks a lot neater than it did before. I think it is geared towards that collapse thing, which is why it's up and down instead of left to right. So let's find something maybe there's something here that'll work a little bit, so they have nav bar. Maybe they have an example that isn't just using a toggler, because what if I don't want that? Looks like they only have the toggler part. Maybe if I got rid of the expand equals MD, maybe that's what's causing it. All right, well, it still looks nicer than it did before, so I'll leave it like that. let's try something else. So we can see they have a whole list of components here that we can try from. Let's try cards. So a card looks like this. So maybe we could do our article teasers to look more like this, even though they won't have an image per se. So for this one, they have card, card image, card text, card body, card title, card subtitle, and a button. We don't need card image. So let's take a look at our article teasers here. So right now it's just a div with a p tag, with a title and a p tag. So let's try to make this look cooler. I'm going to say import card, card title, card text, card body, and let's try the button as well. Why not? So again, I'm going to, oh wait, we need to say from React Strap. All right, so I'm again going to Control X this. So we'll put it all in a div. And inside we'll put a card component. And then a card body. Since we don't need the image. Then we could put the card title. And kind of coming up here, just gonna comment this out now. Will just be title. Do we have a subtitle that we need to do? Guess not. And then card text. We have text here as well. We can probably do the subtitle as the created date, actually. So we'll change this from card text to card subtitle. Card subtitle. And that'll be created date. And then we'll have our button. And we can have that button also be our link, hopefully. So I'm going to copy this, well, actually, I'll just do it again. So a href equals hash, put in an onClick. Actually, now I'm thinking about it, I wonder if we don't need a link tag at all. I think we just put the onClick in the button component. Let's try that. So we can just say go, and then here I'll say onClick equals event.prevent default, and then handle title click with the ID number. So we're just doing that same functionality from this link and putting it in this button component that React Strap has already developed for us. Let's see if it worked. So I go back to my home page. All right, so it doesn't look that different. Maybe I did something wrong here. We do have those buttons, which looks nice. And if I click on a button, it does take me here. So let's see. Oh, we also need this top width. Well, that's the image, never mind. Maybe we can do card tag h equals h5. Let's try that. tag equals h5. Oh, okay. Okay, that looks a bit better. Nope, took me back to that. We can give the subtitle tag equals h6, and they also have a class name we can use. So I'll just copy this stuff. Okay, there we go. That looks a lot better. All right, and we can take a look. They have a whole bunch of other examples here. Let's see, I'm going to check a look at navs. Is navs better than nav bars, or is it the same? Ah, okay. Here we go. We didn't want a nav bar. We just wanted navs. Going back to our navigation earlier. Sorry, one sec. I'm just going to change this around just so we can, my app nav, just make it a little bit, so we don't have this nav bar stuff. It's just navs and nav items. And that's all I guess we needed to do. Oh, I think I also see the other thing that went wrong here. So since I'm mapping over all of these, I was putting each of them inside their own nav component when they should have all been inside one nav component. So I had nav item, and I bet if we examine that right now, that's what it'll look like. Yep, we have nav item, nav item, when it should be nav item, nav item, nav item, nav item, nav item. So I need to figure out a way to say, all right, I want one nav with a bunch of nav items inside of it. I could just say, all right, get me out of here. Whoops, deleted the wrong tag. And put all of these inside a nav tag like so. Refresh the page. All right, it again is kind of looking a little bit weird. I'm not sure why we should be able to have it look a little bit nicer than that. I wonder if it's those div tags causing the problem. Sorry about this, I'm a little troubleshooting by the seat of my pants here. But it's always, whenever we look at these things, there's always some troubleshooting to do. All right, it doesn't seem to want to give us exactly what we want here. Should be giving us some more spacing and stuff like that. That's because I just have nav items instead of nav links. So let me make these nav links. So if I say instead, give me a nav link, and we'll say href equals that. Key equals, actually, let's put the key equal index in nav item. And then we can copy this on click and item.label. Get rid of this a tag. All right, let's see if using their way of doing it makes more sense. Ah, there we go. That looks a lot better. All right, so this is just scratching the surface of what React Strap can actually do for us. As we can see, it has a lot of different components that can do just about everything. So they have alerts, they have drop downs, buttons, carousels. So if you want to show slides, they have jumbotrons that look like this. Pagination as well, which is very useful if you're displaying a lot of items. So I encourage you, while you're all working on News Site 2, after you've gotten all the functionality done, just try messing around with Bootstrap a bit and React-Strap. Try to make it look as pretty as possible. Again, just using this part, the nav bar and the cards is just one small way to do that. All right. And it also says at the end, we want to refactor into functional components. So as you can see, most of these are class-based, at least most of them. So once you've done that, try it again with functional versions. Create a new branch off of your master called functional version and refactor in that. All right. So what questions do you have about News Site 2?
Noah, can you go over the routing again, kind of where the arguments are getting passed in for the router and
Absolutely.
all of that, just the basics.
Yep. So up here, we imported browser router as router and route from our React Router DOM library. We also imported these pages, home page and article page. And inside our app.js, we first created the router component. Inside of that, we have our routes. Each route, we give it exact, meaning like, okay, it has to be this exact route. Path means the actual URL, meaning after the localhost 3000 or what have you. It'll have slash. In this case, that'll just mean with nothing there. And then it says what component to render. In this case, will be our home page or our article page. For the article page, we gave it this thing right here, /articles/ article ID. That colon means that it's going to be passed as params to the component. So if I go back here, that's this thing right here. 0 is a param that gets passed to this article component, and we can access that by looking up this.props.match.params.article ID. And that article ID comes from this thing right here. That's where we define it.
Does that come from the JSON object, though, ultimately, that article ID?
No, it doesn't. Well, so this article ID doesn't actually come from there. If we take a look at our home page, we get in our article list, we do that. And so we know this method's going to take an article ID. So if I take a look at article list, that's where those index numbers are coming from. So we set the ID equal to the index number. So that's not actually coming from news.json. That's just the index number of the list that we're mapping over.
I see. And then the pages is different. How is a page different than a component, or is it the same thing, but just in a pages directory?
Yeah, so a page is just a component in terms of functionality. There's nothing to it. The difference is essentially what we're using it for. In general, we try to organize things by saying, all right, our components are things that are showing up on the page, while the page is there to be essentially serve as a container for the components and be kind of act as our place where we land, where we use a route.
So the page is almost like another version of app.js, but not as important.
You could think of it that way, yeah. It's kind of like saying it serves the same function as app.js in terms of, okay, its job is just to render other components. But yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right, what other questions do y'all have? Okay. And also, I know that we use React-Strap in this one, and React-Strap is pretty good. There's also another library you can try out called React-Bootstrap. I'll send out a link to that in the chat. So if you find React-Strap not working for you, you can also try out React-Bootstrap. It works. It's probably more popular even. So it's just a matter of preference. But they do both interface with Bootstrap and React in kind of similar fashions. I'm going to stop the recording.